You think you know American classics, but the 1950s had secrets even most car guys will never see in person. These aren't your dad's Bel Airs or your neighbor's T-Bird. These are the oddballs, the one-year wonders, the cars that got lost between the lines of history books and auction catalogs. So buckle up. Today we're digging up 9 of the rarest, wildest American machines of the 1950s, the ones that vanished almost as soon as they hit the streets. 1954 Oldsmobile F88. When you talk about automotive unicorns, the 1954 Oldsmobile F88 is as close as it gets. This wasn't just a concept car, it was a gold-plated moonshot, built by GM's legendary Harley Earl when Detroit designers thought anything was possible. The F88 looked like it had just rolled out of a sci-fi comic. Fiberglass body, sweeping tail fins, and a split cockpit that felt more jet fighter than family sedan. Under the hood, a hopped-up 324 rocket V8, supposedly good for nearly 250 horsepower, a big number when hot rods still ruled Woodward Avenue. But here's the twist. Oldsmobile never built it for real. In fact, most historians believe only one genuine F88 was ever assembled, with a few parts mule clones floating around GM's secret warehouses. The car disappeared, then resurfaced decades later. By then, the stuff of legend. At auction in 2005, it hammered for $3.24 million, one of the highest prices ever paid for a piece of Detroit history. The F88 was more than a showpiece. It was a threat. Chevrolet saw it and immediately fast-tracked the Corvette. Ford's Thunderbird? Suddenly, they were sweating in Dearborn. Oldsmobile's brass, though, got cold feet. Maybe it was too radical, maybe the accountants got their way, or maybe GM was just scared to let Olds outshine Chevy. Whatever the reason, the F88 never saw a dealership lot. Today, it sits in a glass case in Colorado, untouchable, mysterious, and still drop-dead gorgeous. Most car guys will only ever see it in pictures, and that's how you know it's truly rare. 1957 Dual Ghia convertible. James Bond never drove one, but Frank Sinatra did. The 1957 Dual Ghia is the kind of car you'd expect to see idling outside the Sands Casino, a Lucky Strike in the ashtray, and Dino crooning from the radio. Only about 117 of these Italian-American hybrids ever saw daylight, and fewer than half survive. Each one was hand-built, the product of a wild partnership between Detroit's Dual Motors and Italy's Ghia coach builders. Here's how it worked. Dual-shipped Dodge chassis and 315 Hemi V8s to Turin, where Ghia's artisans shaped sleek, understated bodies by hand. Then the cars sailed back to the U.S., where they were trimmed out with real wood, leather, and more chrome than a Vegas lounge. Performance? Good for the era. 230 horses and a 4-speed auto. But the real story was style. A Dual Ghia had the presence of a Cadillac and the continental flair of a Maserati. It was the ultimate status symbol for Hollywood royalty. But Dual was a tiny company. The build process was slow, expensive, and totally unsustainable. Within 2 years, the dream was over. Most Dual Ghias ended up in the hands of movie stars or high-rolling mobsters. Sinatra, Peter Lawford, and even Desi Arnaz all owned one. The car became a legend of the Rat Pack era, a rolling passport to the coolest parties in America. Today, if you see a Dual Ghia, you're looking at maybe a $500,000 ticket to another world. It's not just rare, it's an icon that slipped through the cracks of history. 1956 Continental Mark II. Forget what you know about Lincoln. In the mid-1950s, Ford Motor Company tried something radical. They spun off a new brand called Continental and built a car so exclusive it made Cadillacs look like taxis. The Mark II wasn't just expensive, it was astronomical. Nearly $10,000 new, double the cost of a fully loaded Cadillac Eldorado. For that, you got hand-finished paint, acres of stitched leather, and styling that looked more Paris runway than Detroit assembly line. Every Mark II was assembled almost entirely by hand at a dedicated plant in Dearborn. Each engine was dyno-tested, then broken down and reassembled for perfect balance. The body panels, laser straight, with gaps measured by craftsmen using calipers. This car wasn't just about luxury, it was about perfectionism, and it showed. Famous owners included Elvis, Frank Sinatra again, and even the Shah of Iran. But as with all great follies, reality hit hard. The Mark II cost Ford a fortune. They lost money on every single car. Just 2,994 units left the factory in 1956 and 57, and when the accountants finally stormed the boardroom, the Continental dream ended overnight. Today, the Mark II is a footnote, loved by collectors for its elegance and its lost cause mystique. If you spot one at a show, count yourself lucky. You're seeing the last gasp of Detroit's true hand-built luxury era. 1953 Cadillac Series 62 Le Mans. The 1953 Cadillac Le Mans was the concept car that proved Detroit could build a world-class sports machine, if only the bean counters let them. Unveiled at the GM Motorama, the Le Mans took the classic Cadillac V8 and dropped it into a low-slung, lightweight fiberglass roadster. It looked like a rocket with wheels, hooded headlights, flush fenders, a wraparound windshield, and no-nonsense speed. This wasn't a car you could buy. Only 4 Le Mans prototypes were ever built, and each one was a rolling laboratory for GM's wildest ideas. Under the hood sat a 250 horsepower, 331 cubic inch V8, good for a claimed 120 mph. Inside, you got futuristic dash gauges, bucket seats, and almost no insulation. This was a car that wanted to be driven fast. But as often happened in the 50s, management blinked. The Le Mans was deemed too radical, too expensive, and too far from Cadillac's conservative customer base. One by one, the prototypes vanished, scrapped, lost, or repurposed for future experiments. Only 2 are known to survive today, making the Le Mans one of the rarest and most valuable caddies in existence. Spot 1, and you're looking at a car that could have changed Cadillac's destiny forever. 1957 Chrysler 300C convertible. If you want to know where the term muscle car really started, forget the GTO. The 1957 Chrysler 300C convertible was doing 0 to 60 sprints in under 8 seconds, 10 years before the Pontiac boys made headlines. With only 484 convertibles built, it's one of the rarest American muscle machines, and arguably the best looking. The 300C wasn't subtle. The Hemi V8, 392 cubic inches, dual quad carbs, 375 horsepower, was a street-legal race engine. The car looked like it was breaking the sound barrier just sitting still. Massive tail fins, canted headlights, and a grille that seemed ready to eat Buicks for breakfast. Inside, it was pure 1950s glamour. Push-button transmission, leather buckets, and enough red detailing to make a Ferrari blush. But it wasn't all flash. The 300C dominated NASCAR and set records at Daytona. These cars were built tough, and most were driven hard, meaning the few that survive today are worth a fortune. Catch a glimpse of one in the wild, and you're seeing an American original. The 300C convertible isn't just rare, it's a warning shot from Chrysler. Detroit could build true performance cars long before the muscle era officially began. 1955 Chevrolet Corvette Nomad. Before SUVs were even a glint in Detroit's eye, there was the 1955 Corvette Nomad, a car so wild it looked like it drove out of a Jetsons cartoon and onto Route 66. Imagine a 2-door Corvette, only stretched into a sporty wagon with wraparound glass, a sloping roof, and room for your golf clubs in the back. This wasn't just a design exercise. GM was dead serious. The Nomad made its debut at the 1954 Motorama, and the public went nuts. The Nomad had the Corvette's fiberglass body and inline-6 Blue Flame engine, but with station wagon practicality. Underneath, it rode on a Bel Air chassis, making it a true hybrid of speed and suburban sensibility. But as cool as it looked, the Nomad was a hard sell for GM's bean counters. The idea of a fiberglass sports wagon was just too much for the conservative 50s buyer. Only one true Corvette Nomad prototype was ever built. GM did end up building a steel-bodied Bel Air Nomad wagon for the masses, but the Corvette version became legend. Today, the original prototype is locked away in the GM Heritage Center, untouchable, iconic, and proof that American carmakers once dreamed bigger than anyone else. Spotting this car in the wild? Good luck. Most enthusiasts will only ever see it in history books. 1955 Packard Caribbean convertible. If you want to understand Packard's tragic fall, look at the Caribbean. In 1955, this was supposed to be the car that saved the brand, a halo convertible packed with innovation, power, and glamour. Only 500 were built, and each one was hand-assembled with options that rivaled the best from Cadillac and Lincoln. The 1955 Caribbean packed a 352 cubic inch V8, new for Packard that year, pushing out 275 horsepower. Torsion-level suspension gave it an eerily smooth ride, and the power windows, power seats, and dual heaters made it a rolling fortress of comfort. Outside, you got wild 2 or even 3-tone paint jobs and enough chrome to blind passing motorists. It was the car of the country club set, a statement that Packard could still play with the big boys. But the writing was on the wall. Packard was running out of cash, and by 1956 the Caribbean was a swan song. Survivors today are few and fiercely sought after, with collectors scouring the globe for original examples. Spot one in the wild, and you're looking at the last time Packard truly swung for the fences. 1954 Kaiser Darrin Roadster. You might not know the name, but the Kaiser Darrin Roadster is a forgotten gem of the fiberglass era. Launched the same year as the Corvette, the Darrin was actually America's first production fiberglass sports car, and easily the strangest. It had a long nose, short tail look, a signature toothy grille, and sliding doors that vanished into the front fenders. Powered by a modest 161 cubic inch inline six, the Darrin wasn't fast, but its 2,000-pound curb weight made it nimble and fun to drive. Only 435 were ever built. Kaiser simply couldn't convince Americans to buy a sports car from a company best known for basic sedans. The Darrin's designer, Howard "Dutch" Darrin, even bought up unsold cars and fitted them with V8s himself, hoping to drum up demand. Today, a surviving Kaiser Darrin is a rare sight indeed. Most lie pampered lives in museums or high-end collections, and the few that do hit the open road are instant showstoppers. The Darrin is proof that American car history is full of brave, oddball experiments, cars that took big risks and paid for it with obscurity. 1953 Buick Skylark convertible. If the 50s were all about optimism and chrome, the 1953 Buick Skylark was the purest expression of that spirit. Built to celebrate Buick's 50th anniversary, the Skylark was a no-holds-barred luxury convertible, hand-assembled, loaded with every conceivable option, and powered by the new 322 cubic inch nailhead V8. Only 1,690 Skylarks were produced, each with a chopped windshield, Kelsey Hayes wire wheels, and special badging. It was a car for the country club set, a rolling status symbol that screamed, "I've arrived." Inside, you got power everything, leather everywhere, and a ride smoother than Sinatra on a Sunday. The price was steep, over $5,000 in 1953 money, but Buick sold every single one. The Skylark's rarity and beauty make it a blue-chip collectible today. Spot one at a show, and you're seeing the birth of American personal luxury, chrome, power, and confidence wrapped in a package that still turns heads 70 years later. That's the thing about the rarest cars of the 50s. Blink, and you'll miss them. For every Bel Air and Fairlane, there were machines like these. Cars built for dreamers, risk-takers, or just plain madmen. They came and went in a flash, but their legacy still haunts the car world. So next time you see a 50s car show, look a little closer. If you spot one of these 9, you're staring at history most folks never get to see.